Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Saturday, the weekend is here. I hope you're having a good one wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you as always for joining me. I really do appreciate it. It's another busy world in the day of Arsenal. Another day, another signing in this remarkable summer transfer window. Piero Hincapie deal has been agreed for the Bayer Leverkusen defender to move to Arsenal for the season on loan with an option to buy. I'll explain that a little bit later on in the video. So yes, that is one deal that is very, very close to now happening. And that means that another deal is very, very close to happening in terms of outgoings. And that is Jakub Kiwior heading to Porto. So we'll talk about that as well. We'll look at what Mikel Arteta has been saying in his press conference yesterday, in the embargoed section of the press conference. You probably wouldn't have heard or seen the quotes yet. He's been talking about Eberechi and the chances of him starting at Anfield and what he could do and what Arteta expects of him on his first appearance for Arsenal if he does get a start. Talk about Myles Lewis-Skelly. Mikel's been speaking about him as well. Got some comments and questions from you guys to get stuck into. But we'll start, of course, with the big news. David Ornstein reporting it late last night, that a deal has now been agreed between Arsenal and Bayer Leverkusen for the transfer of Piero Hincapie to Arsenal. Just remarkable, honestly, this summer transfer window. I remember when, and I've said this before, that I had lots of comments over the last sort of couple of months or so from people when things were going a little bit slowly. People were saying in the comments, where's this unprecedented summer that it had been billed to be? Well, it has certainly proven to be an unprecedented summer in terms of the money that Arsenal spent, the quality of player that they've brought in, the strength in depth in defence now with Hincapie coming in. When you look at the 8 defenders, proper first-class defenders Arsenal have got, it's absolutely incredible. The options Mikel's got available to him. So Hincapie, he is now on his way, or he will be on his way today to undergo a medical and complete his move to Arsenal. Now, interesting fact here, or interesting part of it is, it is being described, certainly from this side of the deal, as an option, not an obligation. You speak to people on the Leverkusen side, and they are very keen to point out that it is an obligation. But from Arsenal's point of view, it is not an obligation. It is an option. Now, look, basically, this is very much, or feels very much like the David Raya deal, which was, again, just technically an option, but everyone knew it was an obligation. He would be joining Arsenal. There was I'm not sure the exact clause that made it an obligation, but it was something like Arsenal avoided relegation or Arsenal guaranteed European football or something. It just basically that had to happen for it to be an obligation. And this will be very, very similar in terms of Hincapie. He will join Arsenal on a permanent basis. Of course he will. We know that's going to happen. Something very, very small will have to be triggered for that to happen. But, making the deal like this, it'll be for accounting reasons or something like that. It'll be so that it goes down, the full fee goes down in next year's books rather than this year's books. So just the loan fee goes in this year's books. The main fee will go in next year's, and it will be down to that. And Kiwior, I'm sure, will be the obligation that will go down in this year's books. It's just basically it's an obligation in everything but name. Of course it is. But it is, when you do speak to people at Arsenal, they're very keen to push that it isn't an obligation. It is just for now an option that it will be turned permanent. But whatever it is, he's coming in. He is signing for Arsenal, and it's going to be very, very interesting when he is here to see how Mikel will use him, what the plan is for him. Is it just a left centre-back option? Is he a out-and-out left-back option to come in? For Leverkusen, mainly played on the left side of the three, but has played as the fullback under Xabi Alonso before he left. He's continued under Ten Hag. He's played in pre-season and the early stages of this season as the left-sided centre-back. And there's been lots of talk about what he will, how he will fit in at Arsenal. And Fide Joseph has got in touch, and he says, for me, Hincapie is 100% a left-back at Arsenal. Arteta needs a fullback who can overlap to get the best out of Eze. MLS isn't that type of player. He's great at underlapping, though, whereas Calafiori is capable of making that runs, which is why he is started. That said, Calafiori is injury-prone. We can definitely not rely on him all season. In comes Hincapie to solve that problem. I guess what this means for MLS is that he'll be deployed as a more defensive left-back, specifically to lock down opposition wingers. He might start against the likes of Chelsea, but he will gradually be integrated into the midfield. I would love to see him as a 6 and an 8. So that's what Philip Joseph has to say about the Hincapie side. And it will, but I think there's going to be a lot of focus on exactly what we see from Hincapie when he does come in. Obviously, he'll have to bed into the team. He's in a very good position where he doesn't need to be rushed into the team because of the quality of defenders that Arsenal have got and the options that Mikel Arteta has got available to him. So we'll see what Arteta says when it is announced officially, and we can ask him questions about it that he will answer rather than batting them away. But this is a deal now that is very much happening, and I'm fully expecting it to go through now before the end of the transfer window. Medical to come, flying over. Deal done. And again, that will sort of lead to Jakub Kiwior making his move to Portugal. I've said for the last few days, these are very much two deals that are intertwined. They are linked. And it was a case of Kiwior to Porto was basically agreed, but it was only going to be determined when Hincapie's deal was agreed. Obviously, now Hincapie is arriving. That will allow Kiwior to travel. I wouldn't be surprised if he travels today to get that move to Porto done. Looks like around sort of £25 million, give or take, maybe fraction under. Not sure on the exact sort of bonus structure and how that works, and whether Arsenal will get a little bit more than that a little bit later on down the line. There'll be a sell-on clause as well, which should pocket them a few more million. Is that the greatest fee for him? No, I think I would have wanted more, but it is what it is, I guess, in this window. And as I said at the start, I'm pretty sure this will go through in this year's books, which will help offset some of the spending Arsenal have done, while the Hincapie deal will go down in next year's books, which will maybe help things out a little bit accounting-wise for Arsenal. I think Kiwior's going to leave. As you know, his stock is very high at the moment. You know, no one's going to forget what he did in the second half of last season, certainly from April onwards anyway, when Gabriel got that injury. And I think, you know, I was in the stadium that day against Fulham when Gabriel got that injury, and the mood for the next 10 minutes was so palpable around the stadium. You could just hear this buzz of whispering, everyone to each other, thinking, oh my God, Kiwior's going to have to play against Real Madrid. You know, there was a genuine fear about what was to come because of that. But, you know, Kiwior basically shut everyone up. He came in, he showed he can perform at the very, very top level, and he played so well alongside Saliba, especially in those games against Real Madrid when he was absolutely excellent. And because of that, you know, he's going to leave as a very popular figure, I think. I do feel that it does have to be noted that, you know, the initial thought process when Gabriel did get that injury, and that was as, you know, near as April, was, oh my God, Kiwior's coming in. How are we going to? We can't rely on him against Real Madrid and in the sort of final stages of the Champions League. So, although a lot of people, myself included, are now questioning the fee that Arsenal are getting for him now, I think had he not come into the team, had Gabriel not got that injury in April, then I think the thought process behind the possible fee for him now would be very, very different than it is. If you see what I mean, he's completely changed Arsenal's fans' perceptions of him by that run that he had after Gabriel's injury. But he has, you know, and that's why he's going to leave with everyone, you know, wishing him good luck and reflecting on the fee and thinking maybe Arsenal should have got a little bit more. But hopefully he can go on and have a really good career over in Porto. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal come up against Kiwior at some point in the next few years because of the way European football is played now. And so, yeah, I'm sure if he does come back, he'll be very much welcome at the Emirates. He wants to go out and play. I think that's kind of led to what's happened. I don't think Arsenal would have done this Hincapie deal had Kiwior been really happy to stay this season. I think they would have kept the status quo and just kept him for another year. But he wanted to go, he wanted to play, and that's absolutely understandable. At his age, he'll look ahead of him at the quality that he has ahead of him, and he knows that he's not really going to get too many minutes at Arsenal. So off he goes. That will be done before deadline as well, and that'll be 1 in, 1 out at Arsenal. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Right, moving on to what Mikel Arteta has had to say ahead of the game against Liverpool. This was in the embargoed section of the press conference. I love this picture, by the way. If you look at it on YouTube, just look at Eze there. Yes, every single one of us. That's our face if we had just walked inside for the Arsenal. But Mikel has been talking about Eze and about the possibility of him playing at Anfield, making his debut at Anfield. Who knows, even starting at Anfield on Sunday. He was asked, would he be ready? You know, would you have any concern? And Mikel said, look, he's played there many times. I think he's the type of player that loves those scenarios and those moments. I think the moment he starts to play, we will see the team and how it will react and what connections will flourish from his interventions. I'm very confident that he's played in this league for so many years. We're adapting to his qualities and making sure we put him in the right positions as often as possible. We have to put him in the position. This next bit, he was asked, is Eze going to have to change a little bit to fit into Arsenal because he's that kind of maverick player that Arsenal don't have, or are Arsenal going to have to change a little bit to adapt to Eze? And Mikel said, we have to put him in the positions and scenarios that he can deliver those moments, which is the reason why we brought him here, to give us something different, something unexpected, and we will adapt to what is necessary, as we that know the outcome of that is really big. I thought that was an interesting answer from Mikel there, saying we will adapt. And I hope that is the case, because I don't want Eze to become a really structured player, to have that unpredictability taken out of him, because that is the ultimate quality. That's why I've been so desperate for Arsenal to sign him, because he just brings something a little bit different that we don't have in the squad. So I don't want to see that coached out of him, if you see what I mean. I'd love him to still just to maintain that unpredictability, that off the cuff type nature that makes him such a wonderful footballer to watch. So I thought it was an interesting answer from Arteta there, by saying we will adapt to what is necessary, as we know the outcome would be really, really big. So I hope he sticks to that. I really, really do. It gives Eze the freedom to really express himself and just float around the pitch, take up whatever position he wants. Obviously, with he's going to have to defend. He's going to have to do that sort of stuff, because you need to in this Arsenal team. It's what makes Arsenal so strong. But when they have the ball, when they're in possession, don't make him hug the touchline or anything like that. Let him do what he has to do, come into those areas where he can really, really be a threat. Talking about what makes Eze so special, Mikel said, players like him, they have a different feel of the ball. Everything glides and moves so smoothly. They're beautiful to watch, the way they carry the ball, the way they take touches, the way they turn. Eberechi has that for sure, and he has that talent. I think when you are next to him, you are comfortable. He's got that big smile, and then he picks teams apart. He asks the right questions, and then just let him flow with the ball, and the ability that he has to pick passes, to drive past people effortlessly, and just to understand the timing of things. It's very, very impressive. So good words there, I thought, from Mikel on Eze. It's going to be so interesting, that starting lineup on Sunday. I'm genuinely intrigued to see the way he goes. I just can't. I can't predict it. I'll do my predicted 11 on Sunday morning in the show, and I'll do the 11 that I want to see. But the predicted 11, I'm really not confident of being able to get it right, because I can't get into Mikel's mind on this one. And I know in the back of my mind what I think he will do. In terms of, I still feel like he'll play safe, just because that's what I've come to expect from Mikel. But I'm so intrigued to see if he just goes different. And then if he does go different, what that means for the rest of the season. Is this going to be are we going to see a big, big shift from Mikel this season? Are we going to see him maybe move away from being a little bit safe and go for the win, really go for it, really attack teams? I honestly think his 11, in the absence potentially of Odegaard and Saka, again, is going to tell us an awful lot about what he's planning for this season. I really, really do. Just on Myles, and obviously we just had that sort of comment on the back of Hincapie, and they mentioned Myles, and they see him possibly transitioning into a midfielder over the next couple of years, and maybe he'll be used as a defender to lock down teams this season. Mikel was asked about him in the embargo section of the press conference, in terms of him being on the bench, the fact he hasn't started either of the Premier League games. He was asked, have you had to speak to Myles about this and explain what's happening? And Mikel said, I always have conversations with players about what to expect, the reasons why they play or they don't. And sometimes it's because there's another player doing really well. But Myles has been in contention in both games. I think he's very consistent, very, very consistent in the way he's been. When you don't play, you have to fight to win that place. That's it. I think that is going to be a really telling line, not just for Myles, but for so many players this season. When you don't play, you have to fight to win that place, because Mikel's options are so. Honestly, I can't remember a stronger squad than this. I honestly think it's a stronger squad than the Invincibles. And people might laugh at that. I'm not saying the players are better than the Invincibles' main players. Of course I'm not. But I think squad-wise, you look at that squad for the Invincibles, and you had Pascal Sigan playing loads of games, doing well, fair play to him, but playing loads of games, Ali Adier and players like that were, squad players in that team. You look at the squad this season now, the depth of it, the sheer amount of players there are. I genuinely think it's the strongest squad that I can remember at Arsenal. It's the options that he's got available to him are mad. You look at the defenders, it's crazy. And so when he says there, when you don't play, you have to fight to win that place. It's going to be on so many players, that line of, you want to play in this team, you want to get regular minutes, you want to be one of my sort of go-to guys in the 11. You are going to have to absolutely perform, and that's got to be a good thing, isn't it? It's got to be a good thing for Arsenal this season. The sheer depth that they now have and the quality they have after this window is it's a sight to behold when you look at that squad. It really, really is. Couple of questions now or comments. Addy has got in touch and says, wow, so lucky for no surgery on Saka. Can we explore Dowman now as a true option, or should Ethan get the nod? I think Dowman's going to be a true option for the squad. Absolutely. Is he going to be a true option for the out-and-out replacement from Saka? No, I don't think he is. Noni Madueke is going to be that guy. That's why Noni Madueke was signed. But Dowman's going to play. I fully expect he's going to play. The fact he's got minutes already in the second home game of the season, in the league, he's definitely going to be an option. Is he going to be in the squad every single week? No, he's not. Of course he's not. He's a 15-year-old kid. But he's going to be in the squad plenty of times. And I'm sure Mikel and the coaching staff will kind of pick and choose quite carefully who he's involved with and when. The fact they took him to Old Trafford, even though he wasn't in the squad on that day, again, it was just to give him the experience of going to a massive stadium, hearing that atmosphere, seeing what it all entails with the squad. So he's definitely a true option for Arsenal this season. We're going to see him play plenty of minutes, I'm sure, but it will be carefully managed. No doubt about that. But yeah, I think Madueke will definitely be the out-and-out true option when it comes to replacing Saka when he's been injured. That's why he was brought in. Max has got in touch, and this was in response to what I was saying yesterday about the Champions League draw and how I was thinking there's just no real benefit to being in pot one in terms of the ease of the group you can potentially get, or not the group, but the league phase games you get. And Max says, Charles, the pots are no longer to make it easier for pot one teams to reach knockouts and almost impossible for pot four to even register a single win. There is no advantage to being in pot one. The pots now exist for the sole purpose of making every team in the league phase, regardless of pot, have as equally difficult as possible path to reach the knockouts. It's much fairer for the smaller teams. It also makes the stage much more entertaining because so many more even matchups, especially more matchups with the big boys playing each other this early. It is also a really good draw for Arsenal. We avoided the potential super far away trips. Real Madrid have to fly to Kazakhstan, avoided going to Northern Norway in winter, avoided PSG and Barca from pot one, arguably the two strongest non-Prem teams, avoided Napoli in pot three, by far the strongest pot three team. Yeah, it's definitely not a bad draw for Arsenal. It's not the absolute easiest draw they could have got, but you're very, very lucky if you end up getting the easiest draw you could possibly got. I'm looking at Tottenham there for that one. But I think when you look at Arsenal's draw, they'll be relatively happy. Of course, you're going to get some big teams. That's unavoidable in this format. And Arsenal have got some big teams, but Inter Milan away, I know Arsenal lost at the San Siro last season, but they dominated that game, albeit Inter made a few changes. But that's not the worst team you could have got out of pot one. Atletico Madrid are going to be difficult. Of course they are. Bayern Munich at home, we know all about that, but it's not the worst group for Arsenal. It's going to be tough, of course it is, but as Max explains with the format of this new league phase, as we saw last season, it is very, very difficult to get really, really comfortable route through to securing your place in the top eight. Andrew has got in touch now. He says, I've said it before, I'd be more than happy to start the game away in safe mode. This is against Liverpool, at potentially our main rival of the season. If we can hold them and possibly get a set piece or a Gyökeres through on goal in the first half, then great. If not, later adjust the team to change the flow. If it was a home game against lesser opposition, I'd think differently, but not losing to them this early in the season at their ground is a very important step from a confidence aspect for both teams. Yeah, it would be. Look, you offer me a draw right now, I'd take it. Absolutely, I would take it. Do I want a draw? No, of course I don't. I want to win. But if you offer me a draw, that is not a bad result. I've heard people, and James was talking about this on the Press Pass show, James McNicholas, he was listening to the overlap, and I haven't listened to the overlap. I don't listen to that, but he was listening to it, and he said that the usual suspects were sitting there saying Arsenal have to win this game. So it's utter rubbish. They don't have to win this game. Do they want to win this game? Yes. Would it be great if they win this game? Yes. Do they have to? Absolutely not. Third game of the season, going to Anfield. A draw is not a bad result here for Arsenal. And you're right, Andrew, he might start it in safe mode. And if he does, there would be a tinge of disappointment in me if he does, but I could absolutely understand why he would. And when I say safe mode, I'm imagining the midfield there of Zubimendi, Rice and Marino. That's what I'm kind of envisaging in my head when I think of safe mode for this game. I don't want him to start like that, but I can understand why he would. And like you say, if he does start like that, then the options he's going to have on the bench to come on and change the game in the second half, potentially to go on and try and win the game in the second half, would be huge. And that's even in the absence of players like Saka and Odegaard, which again points to the strength and depth that Arsenal now have. And that is it from me today, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Do have a very good Saturday wherever you are around the world, as we all wait until that game tomorrow. Enjoy the football if you're going to be watching any other football today. And if not, just enjoy some downtime. And I'll be back in the morning to do it all over again. I'll do my predicted 11 tomorrow. Send me in your 11s what you want to see, and I'll pull some of them together and get them included in tomorrow's show. Take it easy, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.